evening, peoples. I'm Pastor Leia. This is Ginger Snap. So welcome back to our living room for our... Excuse you. Meow yourself. Welcome back to our living room for our Bible study series on the 12 Apostles. Tonight we have the 12th installment of said series. It is, however, not the final installment of the 12 Apostles series. So we've been going through them alphabetically. And of course, there are 4 Gospels in the book of Acts, and they don't all have the same list of 12 names, when indeed they have a list of 12 names. So Philip tonight, Philip the Apostle, not to be confused with Philip the Evangelist from the book of Acts, who does a couple things. Because of course there's multiple Philips, because why wouldn't there be? At least there's no question that Philip's name is definitively Philip. No one calls him anything else. He's occasionally conflated with Philip the Evangelist, but anyway. So, fun fact, Philip is one of 5 apostles who are very definitely named in all of the 4 Gospels, as well as the book of Acts. So that is Simon Peter, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, and Judas. Simon Peter and Judas, obviously, they're kind of key characters in the stories, so that shouldn't be surprising, but Andrew, Philip, and Thomas also are named in all 5 of these books, so that's a fun fact for you. So Philip's call story from the Gospel of John, chapter 1. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from... Ginger Snap. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." So I love that from the very beginning of Philip entering into the story, he meets Jesus, and his response is not just, wow, but also, I need to bring other people to be introduced to this man. So come and see is a nice response that he has. So later in John chapter 6, we have the story of the multiplication of loaves and fishes. When Jesus looked up and saw a large crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" Jesus said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. Very chatty this evening. So I really like that Jesus, even though he knows what he's about to do, but he still wants to talk to the apostles beforehand, because of course his intention is that these guys are going to be the ones going around the area, the world even, sharing his story with others. So even though he could, just do things, he talks about them first, and in this case he's talking about them with Philip. So a few more chapters later, in John 12, we read, "Now among those who went up to worship at the festival were some Greeks. They said to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, 'Sir, we wish to see Jesus.' Philip went and told Andrew, then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. Jesus answered them, 'The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. Whoever serves me, the Father will honor.'" So I've seen a few different pulpits in different churches where that line, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus," is engraved on the inside of the pulpit, not the outside where like you would be seeing it, but where I would be seeing it. Which I think is a nice reminder to the preacher that, "Sir, you are here to show Jesus to the people," and I'm gonna just, accept the honorific of "Sir" in this case. Why do I have a pet that I'm allergic to? Why? So later at the Last Supper, to paraphrase a bit, Philip is like, "But Jesus, how will we know the Father? You're kind of talking in vague terms again here, Jesus. Like, your parables are hard to understand, right?" And Jesus is like, "Philip, honey, you've been with me how long? If you know me, then you know the Father." Obviously, Jesus is much more eloquent than me when I do sarcastic retellings of Bible stories. So it was another case where Jesus could, again, just do things, but he talks to his friends first, and so Philip is part of the conversation. So those are the scenes in which Philip gets dialogue. So now we get to the extra canonical legend fan fiction pieces, which are the fun part for me. So according to one legend, Philip went off on his own to spread the gospel rather than pairing up with a buddy, which would have been very unlike any of the other apostles. That's kind of an odd detail. But according to another legend, which is vastly more interesting, this is from a 2nd or 3rd century text, I think, that we found in Achamonix. So Philip went to spread the gospel in Greece, Phrygia, and Syria. Phrygia being a part of what's now Turkey. So he goes to these places with his sister, Mary Amne, as well as the apostle Bartholomew. So he's definitely not alone in this version of the story. So they're sharing the gospel, obviously, of Jesus, but they're also sharing the gospel of vegetarianism. Sure, I endorse this. They're also promoting celibacy, which... they also commemorate the Eucharist with vegetables and water instead of bread and wine. And not gonna lie, some of these legends are a bit weird with their supernatural entities or their over-the-top miracles or, the melodramatic martyrdoms or the relics that mysteriously and kind of conveniently wash up on shore like 1,000 years after the person died. But even setting all of that aside, the idea of communion being vegetables and water is, in my opinion, the weirdest detail that I've come across in all of this apostle legend stuff. Like, vegetables and water. Like, it's right there explicitly in the text that Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to his friends. And it's bread. The word is bread. It's not turnip, it's bread. And again, it's wine, not water. Anyway. But also, Philip was there, at the Last Supper. It's not like he was getting the story, 14th hand from somebody, and maybe somebody, confusedly said zucchini bread, and then they were playing 1st century telephone, and then it came to him as vegetables. Anyway. Vegetables and water. So anyway, in this legend, Mary Amne wears men's clothing and serves as both a priest and a deacon, which is very forward-thinking for the 1st century as a way to smash those gender roles, Mary Amne, because gender is a social construct and rigid adherence to binary doesn't help anybody. Anyway, and I'm still... That's still a lot easier for me to swallow than the vegetables. There being a female priest cross-dressing in the 1st century. So there's also a talking leopard in this story and a talking goat. So Philip, is chatting with them, and so these animals agree to be their traveling companions. This detail is still not as weird as the vegetables. So Jesus had wanted the three of them to go to the city where people worshipped a race of snakes and dragons, as people do. So they're on their road trip to get there, and so there's monsters on the way, and there's demons on the way. So they're like exercising and doing miracles, and they also run into some snakes. That part is normal so far, but these snakes are not just any snakes. These snakes happen to be the descendants of the snakes that many years before Pharaoh's court sorcerers had turned into staffs in the book of Exodus to make a point to Moses. And I think that's just a nice little literary callback detail that, ties those back in. Anyway, so Bartholomew, Philip, and Philip's sister, Mary Annie, perform various miracles and exorcisms, etc., but they go just one step too far when they convert the wife of a proconsul, some like official dude somewhere, and that's too much. Believe that they literally cause an entire temple to be pushed into an abyss, but it was the conversion that was the final straw. So the three of them are tortured, and so then the two guys are crucified upside down. But even on the cross, Philip is still preaching. And his sermon has such a profound emotional effect on the people there that they bring Bartholomew down from the cross, and they're about to let him go. And I think they're about to free Philip also, but his response is not, "Thank you, yes, I would like to not be executed painfully this afternoon." His response, Philip's response is, "Nah, I'm good. You can crucify me. Just be sure to build a church on the site of my martyrdom, okay? And I want the leopard and the goat to live there. We're good. Carry on with crucifying me." I do not want a talking leopard in my church, personally. There's enough, more than enough cat hair in my life already. Another legend has him just beheaded instead of being crucified upside down. And yet another legend has him stoned to death while tied to a cross, which, gotta say, I have not come across that before in stories of anyone's martyrdom. So Philip is the patron saint of Luxembourg and Uruguay. He is also the patron saint of hat makers and pastry chefs. And most of these apostles had a long list of the groups of people or professions who call them their patron saint. But Philip is hat makers and pastry chefs. End of sentence. Which I'm really not sure why that is. Is Philip less popular? I like hats, I like pastries, I don't know. So anyway, in art, he is often depicted with bread and fish because he features rather notably in the story of the multiplication of the loaves of bread and the fish. He might also be shown with a tall cross. So his feast day, depending on who you ask, is either May 1st, May 3rd, October 11th, November 14th, November 17th, or November 18th, because people don't like agreeing on things. Churches don't like agreeing on things. Yeah, enough said there. So his relics, we have his right foot, which has a nail through it, from a crucifixion, and part of it is tibia. These bones are probably not where you think that they would be. Most of them are in a basilica in Rome, but if you don't want to travel all the way to Italy to see Philip in person, I was going to say in the flesh, but we're talking about bones, maybe the foot has not the point. But if you don't want to travel that far, or if your passport's expired or whatever, you could merely go to upstate New York, where, in the second largest suburb of Buffalo, New York, you could find a sliver of the foot bone. Fun fact. Yeah, so anyway, that's Philip, the 12th of our 12 apostles, because, you know, numbers don't mean anything. So we will be continuing next week with the 13th of our 12 apostles. Yeah, anyway, until then, friends, good night.